I do have to say, since we're in Las Vegas, I would like to know what the over and under is on how quickly I will mention AI. Any bets? Any, nothing here? Okay. Time, based on time. How long will it take me to get there? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. How much money are you taking on that? Oh, yeah, no. Nobody's willing to put skin in the game on that. Okay. Well, we'll get there eventually. So thank you. I just want to give you a little bit of a roadmap as to what we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes. We're going to talk about the ever-present changing landscape of talent acquisition, some innovative strategies that I want you to really be thinking about in this area. I want to really focus, my end game here is getting to pivoting your role to be a strategic talent advisor, and I'll explain what I mean by that, and help you to understand how to holistically manage the entire talent ecosystem. So let's start off with just kind of the state of being as it is today. Your remit, I think everyone can agree, is to hire full-time employees into open jobs, right? Yes, okay. Much to some people's chagrin, the focus is on immediate hiring needs versus having conversations about future strategic planning. I've heard that complaint from several of my colleagues. And the talent pool that you're going after is external, right? We want to take external people and bring them into our organization. Nothing here is shocking. But here's your problem. 3/4 of companies say they cannot access the skills that they need to execute on their business strategy. This problem has been going on for a number of years. You can see that it's been getting worse. It hits its precipice in 2023. This is not going to get better. It may get worse, but it's certainly not going to be getting any better. And that presents a big challenge and maybe some job stability for all of you. So what are these critical skills that companies are searching for that they cannot find or that are really, really top of mind for them? And this research is from Manpower Group. And I'm going to start with the soft skills and move on to the technical skills. So research by Rob Cross and his colleagues tell us that 85% of our work week is consumed in collaborative activities. In the last two decades, we have seen an increase in 50% about the amount of time that employees and managers spend working in a team or collaborating. It makes sense that this is at the top of the list. How we work has changed. Collaboration is hugely important in your companies. Accountability and reliability have always been important, so I'm just not going to touch on that. Here we go, you guys. Effectively using generative AI requires reasoning and problem-solving skills. What was your time? Okay. So as we lean into an era where computers can do many tasks for us, probably better and faster than we can. Come on in, there are some extra seats up here. We need to rely more and more on human ingenuity in doing your jobs. You need to think about what you do that is value added beyond what a computer can do for you. Really important. The fourth area is near and dear to my heart because my personal mantra is always be learning. Our skill sets are changing so quickly in organizations. You might be hiring somebody for a very specific skill set, but if you are not hiring people who are curious and willing to learn, you're going to hire people who will become obsolete in your company. I'll give an example of that in a minute. And then kind of related to that is our world of work is changing quite rapidly. An important business priority today might become obsolete tomorrow as a new threat or opportunity presents itself. So resilience and adaptability are really key for organizations, right? Looking on the technical skills, nobody is surprised here to see IT, data, and engineering at the top of the list, right? Cybersecurity, data analytics, and AI have been king in terms of the skills we need to search for that we can't find for a number of years. But engineering, really important, because this is where new product innovation comes from. This is where the customer experience lives through great engineering. So really, really important. Really great salespeople have always been hard to find and retain. Building those customer relationships, bringing people into the organization is something that will always be important to companies. And I want you to all to think about your skill sets. You have a lot of transferable skills here that are quite similar to what happens in sales. So, some people may not want me to say this because this is a TA conference, but if you're having a hard time finding a job in TA, there might be some sales opportunities for you. But it's what we call an adjacent skill set. You have a lot of the foundation that can be built upon. The pandemic and the subsequent supply chain breakdown put a bright, big spotlight on the importance of operations and logistics. And with the current situation with tariffs, those logistics jobs are going to be like gold for our companies. So this is really important today and growing importance. And then manufacturing and production. This is a conundrum for us. The technologies in our organizations have changed, so factories have changed. The people who have traditionally worked in manufacturing and production have different skill sets than the skill sets we need today. And then we've got these Gen Z employees, and they all want sexy jobs. They all want to be social media influencers. They want something like cool. They don't want to work in a factory. But of course, our current administration wants us to bring more production and manufacturing to the United States. Where are we going to find those people? This is a big problem, my friend, right? But this is a chart that I want you to really think deeply about, because this is going to impact your job for years to come. This is the historical fertility rate. So what you see on the horizontal axis is the number of children being born per woman. And, I don't have a little laser pointer. The replacement rate there is for every couple, you have 2 children. That would be replacement rate. The problem is, in the United States, we haven't been reproducing at replacement rates since 2009. And in the EU, you have to go all the way back to the 1980s before they were reproducing at replacement rates. So as our workforces age and our population growth declines, countries cannot count on excess workers to fuel economic growth. So absent some miracle increase in productivity in organizations, AI, please deliver, or increases in our workforces through increased participation rates, which we have a big problem with today, or immigration, we will not be able to so much as meet, let alone exceed, the really meager economic growth that we have had in the past decade or two. Now, tight job markets present both challenges and opportunities for us. For employees, a tight labor market means there are more opportunities for me to look for, and as we saw kind of post-pandemic, wage growth rises. That's awesome. But what happens? What happens when that happens? Inflation, right? So while right now we're living in kind of economic wonky times, I would say, this is going to happen again, because this demographic reality is going to be impacting talent shortages for decades to come. Understand that. We're trying to get the US government to understand this fact. This is huge. So at the economic level, McKinsey tells us that the gross domestic product of countries could have been 0.5 to 1.5% larger in the biggest advanced economies if we had been able to fill all of those open job vacancies. Your jobs are so very important, not just to the companies that you serve, but to the US economy overall. So since companies are having a hard time finding employees with the right skill sets, these very difficult to find specialized skill sets, what are they doing? They're turning to contract work or on-demand talent platforms to help them. According to LinkedIn, the number of open contractor positions in technology firms have tripled in the last 2 years alone. That is pretty scary. Now, companies are increasingly using contractors because our work can be broken down into projects. And that kind of work is really well suited to project-based work, right? Not everything, aren't all living in the biotech world where we're trying to cure cancer that requires research that goes on for years and years. A lot of our stuff can be broken down into a given project. And I would even argue in cancer research, some things could be broken down into a particular project. But contractors also provide organizations with flexibility. So a few years ago, I was at Upwork's client conference, and their client said the business case for using that platform was flexibility and speed. If I need to get something done, I can hire a group of people who are 100% committed to that work, and I can get something done fast and with the right talent. But traditionally, we set up a task force to go do something. We ask people who already have really busy jobs to come work on this special project. It doesn't get done as quickly. The other issue around flexibility it goes back to 2008. I was doing some work for Charles Schwab at the time. I was a contractor. What happened in 2008? Financial crisis, right? Stock market plummeted. I'm working for Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab makes money under assets, okay? It was not a good day. The next day, they turned off all contracts that were not mission critical. Like that, they canceled everything. You can't do that to full-time employees. So in good times, contractors brought Charles Schwab capability and capacity, and then in the bad times, they were able to manage their financial spend by cutting off those contracts. It worked for them. It sucked for me, I will admit that. But, life goes on. The other reason people hire contractors, or so they say, is for potential cost savings, right? What they say is employers are skirting the rules and not hiring full-time people because they don't have to pay that full employee benefit, right? It's like 40% of somebody's salary to hire a full-time worker. Now, I'm going to say contractors actually charge more than an employee would make on an hourly basis. So there's a little exaggeration to this. However, regardless, hiring contractors helps you gain access to critical skills that you need to do the critical work of your organization. In the technology sector, they're known for having 50% of their workers as contractors. Not because they're all trying to skirt the rules, because they can't get access to that talent. But here's my problem. You guys aren't in the room. Talent acquisition isn't acquiring this talent, right? It's either procurement is doing it, or managers are just going to the on-demand platforms and hiring people. That's a problem. Today, about 44% of our workforce population, or 73.3 million workers, have chosen to work as a contractor, a gig worker, a freelancer, call them what you want, they've chosen this kind of work. And if you think that number surprises you, just wait. By 2028, it's anticipated that that number is going to grow to 90.1 million people. And if you think they're all Uber drivers making some cash on the side, think again. A third of these people are making over $150,000 a year, and half of them are knowledge workers. What is really interesting is, those people who have these specialized skills, they don't want to work for your company. They don't want to work for any company. They want to write their own rules. They want to work in this environment. And a little concerning to me is Gen Z seems to be particularly enthused by this career option. They're not as interested in working for a company. They want to work for themselves. You need to develop new strategies to get the talent that you need as an organization. The old rules don't necessarily apply. Now, in the past, freelancing was kind of a dicey option, right? You had to have a pretty good network to be able to get the jobs that you wanted. That's how it was when I started. But today, we have this plethora of different talent platforms that quickly match people's skills to the projects that are available. So if you look at this chart, and this is, of course, just an example of what's going on out there, on the very top are all the big platforms that you're familiar with, right? The Upworks and the Freelancer and Guru, et cetera. But what I find absolutely fascinating is popping up overnight is over 242 vertical, specialized, niche platforms that are catering to people that have specific skills. So if you're a creative, or you're a product person, you're in finance, or you're a tech person with those specialized skills, there are platforms for everybody. And this is where you go to find the right talent. This is even spilling over into other areas. So if you're a C-suite executive and you don't want to work full-time, well, you can either work on one of these fractional platforms where you can find an interim assignment, or I want to work for a startup and be a chief marketing officer, but I only want to work 2 days a week. I can do that, and there's a platform that'll connect me to that kind of work. There's also platforms that connect people to in-person frontline work. You name it, we got a platform for it. Companies like GE, Samsung, Unilever, J&J, they're all leveraging these on-demand platforms to help them gain access to the skills that they need to drive their business forward. They are using them to help them manage surge needs, and also to help their organizations be more agile. When business priorities shift, they're able to quickly bring people on and focus on that business critical issue. We saw that a lot happen during the pandemic. But let me be clear. These companies are not hiring these contractors because they can't get because the employees, the contractors can't get a real job, right? These contractors are working in this way because they want to work where they want to work, with whom they want to work, when they want to work, how much they want to work. It's up to them. Now, many of you are familiar with the term internal talent mobility, which traditionally has been about moving somebody to a different position to create a learning opportunity for them, right? So this was owned by learning and development in your companies. In 2020, I wrote a book called The Inside Gig, and it thought about internal talent mobility in a much more flexible manner. So you won't be surprised by the title of the book that it's really about taking the concept of the gig economy and turning it inside of your company. And here, rather than having somebody leave their job to get a new opportunity or to use their skills in a different venue, we're suggesting that we can break your job into a series of projects, and then we can simply make room for one additional project. So think about this. Let's say you have a requisition to fill, and it's taking a really long time to fill that job. Important work is not getting done. By using an internal talent marketplace platform, you can seek out talent that already exists within your company, either as a potential source for your opportunity, or maybe somebody has capacity and the skills to get something really important done while you continue that search for a full-time person. How many of you are familiar with what an internal talent marketplace is? Ooh, not a lot of hands. Okay, so let me explain. An internal talent marketplace uses AI to match the skills of your employees, not just the skills that they have that they use in their day job. We ask employees to fill out a profile and to bring all their past experiences, their passions, and their interests, and to have that in the platform. And then we can use AI to match them to the skills needed on various projects in your organization or for open positions. Now, most companies that use an internal talent marketplace allow employees to either search for a new career opportunity, new job within your company, or they allow them to opt into a project on top of their day job. Not a lot of us have that extra time. In my book, The Inside Gig, we actually talk about this in a much different way. So when you think about breaking your work into a series of projects, you can then move your work around so that you're working at your optimum value. So maybe AI can do that task that frees 2 hours of your time up, where you could then go do something else where you're adding more value. Or maybe there's something that you do that you're really good at and you've been doing it for a long time, but it'd be a great learning opportunity for somebody else who's interested in talent acquisition or sourcing. Then you can have them do that project and it frees you up to do something else where you can learn. So often these talent marketplaces are owned by the talent management function, but I would say as often they're either solely owned or co-owned with talent acquisition, because there's something in this for everybody. And these talent marketplace platforms provide a wonderful set of benefits for your organization. First and foremost for me is flexibility. It enables you to quickly move talent to your biggest business priorities because you know who has what skills and you can put them on that project. Number two is it turns out that leveraging this kind of strategy increases employee engagement. Employees want diversity and choice in the work that they do. And when you let them opt into projects or find another job in your company, you give them that experience that increases employee engagement. It helps them learn and grow. All these things increase employee engagement. The other thing it does is it reduces turnover, because now I can find another position within my own company. And you know how hard it is for employees to find another job within their existing company. They generally have to leave to do that, but this technology connects them with that. Let me share a story with you about one company and how they use this to help them gain access to the skills that they needed. So Cisco Systems, a number of years ago, had been focused on server-based technology. And they came up with this big new strategy to become a cloud-based company focusing on the Internet of Things. Great, they have the strategy. They say, HR, go out and find us all these people with cloud-based skills. And if you know anything about Cisco, they are notorious for just out with the old employees, in with the new employees, right? We're just gonna go hire all these new people and fire everybody else. Would have been classic Cisco. But they looked out in the labor market and they couldn't find the people with the skills that they needed in the mass that they needed to really, truly execute on this strategy. Some head scratching went on. How are we going to do this? Well, they implemented an internal talent marketplace platform, and then they were really clear with employees. They said, you people with server-based skills, your skills are declining of importance to our organization. And those people with cloud-based skills, you're the future. And then they gave their employees opportunities to opt into projects while they got to learn while growing, upskilling themselves, and doing important work that fueled the organization's transformation. And that is how Cisco became a cloud-based company. They built it from the ground using gigs to help them grow the skills internally. So to capitalize on the potential of these digital talent platforms, whether it be an internal talent marketplace or an on-demand talent platform, it requires a fundamental shift in how you acquire talent. And that shift entails integrating all sources of talent, both internal and external, into one cohesive vision that drives how you will acquire the talent that you need. A skills-based approach to talent acquisition is the linchpin of this strategy. IBM and Walmart have been huge leaders in this movement. 62% of Americans over the age of 25 do not have a 4-year college degree. That's 175 million potential applicants for your jobs. So if you are screening for college education, you are screening out 62% of our population. With our talent shortages, you can't afford to do that. With skills changing quickly, just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you have the skills that we need you to focus on. So given our talent shortages, we need to widen the aperture of who we're looking at as potential talent for our organization. And we need to increase the diversity of the pool of talent that we're looking at by recognizing and valuing credentials in addition to college education. Because sometimes it's the credential that we're looking for, that specific hot skill that we're looking for, not the 4-year college degree, right? And here's the business problem that I want you all to solve, that I want us to solve today. Maybe not today, but today, nobody manages the entire talent ecosystem. It's managed in silos, and it's getting in our way. So talent acquisition, you're going after full-time employees. That's where I started today. Procurement is hiring all these contractors. Well, I hate to tell you, most of those contractors have the most critical skills and are working on the most critical business projects that you have for your organization. And procurement is getting them. They aren't onboarding them. They treat them like a widget. It's horrible. And then we have managers who are bypassing the lengthy talent acquisition process, and they're certainly avoiding the bureaucracy of procurement, and they're just hiring talent on demand. The problem is that they're just going to the platforms that they know about. They're not aware of those 242 niche platforms where you can really go after the talent that you need. Forward-thinking companies aren't just accessing these on-demand talent platforms on an as-needed basis. They're actually curating a group of vetted talent through these platforms so that they can pull on people as they need them. They call it talent in a cloud, and it helps you get work done faster and better than our traditional ways. Today, this world of employees or contractors is managed in different budgets and in different silos. You need to talk to your leadership and help them to understand there is a more efficient way of managing all of this talent. And I believe that talent acquisition is in the perfect position to manage the entire talent ecosystem. So my vision for you is to help you shift from just a focus on sourcing and hiring to being a strategic talent advisor. To shift from taking direction to partnering with business leaders and understanding the strategic shifts that are happening in your company and the talent implications of those shifts. From filling a role today to advising managers on the different ways in which you can access talent and what that means for their short and long-term needs. And to full on change your remit from full-time employees to all sources of talent. So here's a 3-step approach to holistically managing the entire talent ecosystem. Effective talent acquisition requires access to skills data that helps you understand what you have in the organization already, as well as the availability and the location of talent externally. So when I say location, I don't mean geographically. I mean, where does this talent live? Does it live in a competitor organization? Is it in a different industry altogether? Or is it on one of these on-demand talent platforms? Once you understand the talent that's available and you can look at some of your skill gaps, and then it's very important for you to consider these adjacent skills. I've mentioned this a couple times. Adjacent skills are skills that either are similar to or form the foundation of another skill. When you have an adjacent skill, you can quickly upskill people. That's what Cisco did. They found people with adjacent skills, and then they quickly upskilled them to be cloud-based technologists. Step number 2 is really understanding your workforce. The people you have today, not just what they do in their day job, but what they could do if you needed them to. That's what a talent marketplace is all about. And then having regular ongoing conversations with your managers about what's happening in the business and understanding those emerging needs and the skills that are coming up that are new, that perhaps you don't have enough of in the organization, like AI, that you need to start thinking about how are we going to access that talent. And then step number 3 is bringing it all together for those leaders so that you can develop a strategy with them to help them get what they need in the short term and in the long term. Implementing the strategic advisor role requires you to rely not just on the traditional ATS systems. We have all our vendors out here focused on that. We need to use technology to track skills so that you understand what skills are in supply and what skills are in demand. And we can use these kind of labor market resources like Lightcast or LinkedIn. They're just 2 examples. There are other vendors. I just wanted to put some examples up here for you. And then be the spearhead of implementing a talent marketplace, something that is really not widely used amongst your organizations. Gloat and Eightfold are 2 of many, many companies that offer this kind of technology to your organization. It's a great opportunity for you to partner with your talent management colleagues because this is a strategy that helps you bring people into the organization and it helps them grow the talent when they're there. So it works both ends. It's a great way for you to collaborate. But importantly, I want you to understand those on-demand talent platforms for the skills that you're looking for, whether it's for a branch or an operations role. You need to know what are the platforms that have the skills that you need for your organization. Then curate a pool of talent that work off of that platform, pre-vet them so that you can use them when you need them. A strategic approach to talent acquisition begins with knowing what you have and understanding the supply and demand of talent, and ensuring that your talent strategies will meet the needs of your business. Winning in today and tomorrow's business environment really requires this more comprehensive approach to talent acquisition, and you can become irreplaceable by strategically mastering the talent ecosystem of internal and external talent. Thank you. And let's open it up to questions. Yes.
Yes, hold on, I gotta bring the mic to you. You'll make me do more steps that way, right?
Thank you, Edie. This is a question that's a yes, but. I think the people in this room, we are all engaged and encouraged about what you said. This was very inspiring. But the yes, but is there is a culture inside of most American companies that is about fiefdoms and silos that is not welcoming to this. So maybe this is another book that you need to write about how do we get rid of this? Because we all, I think we all would agree we need to do this, but the culture is not set up to allow for that. So what is one thing that members of this audience, recruiters and sourcers, can do tomorrow to go back to their leaders to try to get them to think about this? Because we can't change that culture, but they can.
I'm going to answer that in kind of two different ways. And one is actually, this is where I have seen the magic of a talent marketplace fundamentally change how work gets done within a company. So in a talent marketplace, you put the problem out there, right? There's this problem that we have to solve, and we need these skills to solve that problem. And then what happens is people from all over the company, it doesn't matter what silo or function you live in, what country you live in, what office you're in, et cetera, it breaks down silos. And one of the companies that I worked with is something like 83% of the projects had cross-collaboration across the organization to solve those business problems. So that's one pitch for like an internal talent marketplace and why I'm so hot on that type of technology. But the answer is we have to solve business problems and stop thinking in our silos. If HR comes together and says, we have a talent conundrum, we need these skills, and there isn't enough supply in the marketplace, how do we all work together to solve that problem? It's that kind of thinking, it's that kind of approach of solving business problems and not worrying about our fiefdom that is really kind of the mindset that we need to come to the game with. So it's both, there's a technology that really facilitates that, but it also starts with a mindset of let's just solve the business problem. It's a great question.
Great. Other questions? Raise your hand and I will come to you.
And is there anything online? I don't know if somebody's monitoring that. Yep.
I am not.
Okay.
So somebody was supposed to, but I'm not.
This young lady has
Here we go.
a question.
Just overall recommendation of if an employee's taking on a project from this internal marketplace, is it just pay and diversification of your workflow, or is there actually compensation attached to it?
Yeah. So a majority of companies that have implemented this strategy view it as somebody's opportunity to explore a new career option or to grow professionally that helps them. So no, nobody's getting paid. However, some of my colleagues at Tata Communications, a big, huge global communications company based in India, they actually are looking at how to integrate their internal talent marketplace with their external contractor portal. And Unilever has a program called UWork, where people who have been employees in the organization, who have kind of like proven I'm a good employee, I know the culture, I get along, you can opt to work on a gig-like way, and you get like a guaranteed set of benefits and a guaranteed number of hours, but you don't have to work full-time, and they are paying them per gig like they would in an external marketplace. So there are some early companies that are really, really adopting that gig mindset, but for the most part, it's really seen as an opportunity for career exploration and growth.
Great. Another question.
Oh, come on. I know this is like mind like, what? You want me to do what?
Everybody might be hungry
I know, it's me
since
and lunch.
it's grub time.
Yeah.
So no other questions?
One more back here,
Where are we at?
all the way in the back row.
Of course you are, right?
It's exercise.
No, it's good.
exercise.
Yeah. Where's the question?
Here.
Oh, hi. How are you? Here you go.
Thank you for this. This is super interesting. What would you say are some of the skill sets that we all might need to develop as we add more different types of workers? So I run a contingent worker program, and I've learned so much, and there's just so many different skills I needed to learn around contract reading, different types of coaching to hiring managers. Like each of the worker types does have a kind of different advisory role that I kind of have a different hat I feel like I have to put on. So do you have any advice for us on how we might grow in the talent space to start absorbing a lot of these different types of
Yeah, I
workforces?
mean, the good news is these on-demand talent platforms are pretty easy to work with, and unlike procurement, and trust me, not my favorite people, I have to go through procurement all the time. You don't have to read the gazillionth legal form to work with these platforms. They have it's pretty standard, but it is that curiosity mindset of where can I go that's out of the norm. So really kind of stretching your mind of not looking in the usual places, but looking in the unusual places. But that consulting skill set is the real skill set. I know you already consult with the managers where you're, creating a job description for them and finding that role. But this really pivots to, you have to help them understand the world has changed. How people want to work has changed. Not everybody wants to be an employee, and they're only looking for employees, and sometimes the skills that they're looking for, really hard to find in that model. And so we have to understand the labor market, so a little labor economics would be helpful for you, but we have to understand that labor market and help our leaders understand the talent you're looking for, it's not there. And we have to try different ways of getting there. So there's a little bit of a coaching, counseling, advising, consulting to those leaders. And this has been the real thing that I've heard from many of my colleagues in talent acquisition. If they just want me to fill the role, they don't want me to ask any questions. Well, you need to share information with them, make them smarter, help them understand how the world of work is changing, and that if you don't change your approaches to acquiring talent, they're not going to have the talent that they need, and the GDP impact is real. And our productivity has been down in this country in particular. It has not been very good, and right now the IMF is saying, it's not going to be so helpful in the future. Coming at it with these business metrics, I think is really important to changing minds.
All right, let's give Edie another big hand. Thank you all.